From Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, it is now time for the individuals in the CrossFit Latin American Regional from Arena Carioca 1, host site of basketball at the 2014 Summer Olympics, and today the host site of the Latin American Regional en route to the CrossFit Games. With five-time regional athlete Chase Ingram, Joel Godet, glad to have you along with us. Tefi Escutaro to follow as well. And you've got one spot for a man, one spot for a woman, one spot for a team. It is all or nothing at this regional, and it makes things really intense and really interesting.
And it does, and it starts with a very intense event. Number one for the individual men and women. It is the triple threes. We see every year we tend to take an event from the previous years and bring it down to the regional level to test these athletes in a very unique kind of way with a repeat style event. 3,000 meter row, 300 double unders, 3 mile run.
What's the hardest part about it?
I think it's just kind of staying in your own lane. And, I think that's a very cliche answer to give, but it really is. I think too many people think that the row and the double unders actually matter in terms of your speed on this event. When you're thinking about trying to place well across the board, it's not about rowing fast. It's not about doing fast double unders. It's about sucking it up on the run and finishing strong. You can kill the row, kill the double unders, and that kills the rest of your event. It wasn't worth it. I mean, not to bring up, say, Rich Froning's triple threes back in 2014, but he tried to keep on pace with the rower with Jason Kalipa. That was a mistake. Tried to go unbroken on the 100 double unders, 100 double unders, 100 double unders. That was a mistake because he wasn't conditioned enough for the run. So even the greatest athletes can make mistakes. Pace the row, be smooth on the double unders, and be ready to run. That's what the secret is.
Couple of guys to watch in this first heat of 20. Batuke Iribarren, who has been to a regional since 2011. He is one of the most veteran guys in this field. But also keep an eye out in lane 6, Andron Primo. He is the local guy from Sao Paulo, Brazil, kind of the hometown favorite.
Yeah.
And he is the dark horse. He did not have a great open, but he expects to have a fantastic regional.
And I think, we kind of pull the audience a little bit here locally, some that, work in the media department, some in the stands, some in the judges. And Primo is that guy that said, he's kind of our Brazil champion, so to speak, if we're thinking of vaulting one.
Well, quite literally, he is the Brazil
country.
champion. They have their own CrossFit competition.
Right, yeah.
And we're underway. Where will Primo finish? Where will anyone finish? Get that rower going here to start things off on triple three. Similar to the assault bike in that you're relying on the fan. You want that fan to get going a little bit.
Air-resistant type piece of equipment, and what you want to see is a lot of this. Nice, long, relaxed strokes, breathing as you go through this. I talked earlier about saying, triple threes back in 2014 at the CrossFit Games. I was talking about Rich's pace on the row, or say someone like Jason Kalipa, who are probably pulling sub 140, 500 meter paces. And what that is just how long it takes you to row 500 meters is the pace you'll see on these Concept 2 rowers. But then you talk to someone like Chris Spieler, and he's like, I was sitting casually over 2 minutes to even 2:10. And he's one of those guys that finished way up in the top of that event. So you're not going to win it on the row especially, and again, this is kind of a cliche, but you can lose it. And you just want to make sure is that in 3,000 meters, it's going to take somewhere between 11 to 13 minutes, depending on how slow you go. But if you're looking at past regionals from last weekend, the best time in the world was sitting right about 35:30 for the men. 10.5 minute row, 3 minutes for the double unders, which is very fast. I think actually it's way too fast for the middle of this event. And then a 22-minute 5K at the end, 3 mile run. If you want something more in a top 10 range, which is what you want to do if you're not in this, you can pace this out so much and still give yourself an opportunity for a great time. Just say you're rowing 2 minutes. It's going to take you 12 to get off in a 3K. You're doing breaking up your double unders conservatively in about 4 minutes. So you start your run in 16. Well, if a top 10 time across the board in the last 3 regions was 38 minutes, you're going to tell me you can't run a 22-minute 3-mile if you just paced for the first half? It's 7.5-minute miles. That's not that hard at this level of athletes. So we'll see what these guys do on the row, who comes off first, and how they look coming off. But pace the row and then set yourself up for the double unders. You got a long event coming.
That rower counts down as well, so if you're looking at it and saying, well, he's almost done, it started at 3,000 and will count down to 0. So all of these athletes are staring right at a monitor that tells them how long they have to go. And there's maybe a little bit of a mental aspect to all of this as well in terms of, and we mentioned this with the assault bike, where do you look? Where's your focus? Where's your mind at? Are you constantly watching that number drop? Or are you kind of off in the distance, just maintaining your pace, and then every so often checking in to make sure you're on par with where you need to be?
I would say both. In the very beginning of this, set your pace, find your rhythm. It's going to take about 500 meters or so to kind of get into that. And then start just kind of, not let your mind wander, but, focusing so hard on one thing can be just as physically demanding because of what it does to you mentally as it is being lackadaisical or rowing too fast. So what I would do is set my pace, get a feel for it, and then just kind of keep my eyes up, look around, breathe, focus on the little things to keep me relaxed. And then every 10 to 15 seconds, I'll pop in and make sure that my row pace is where I want it to be. If not, I'll slow down or speed up accordingly, and then just kind of go back to daydreaming for a little bit.
We saw Lucas Almeida earlier, by the way, wearing a T-shirt that said Lucas Almeida, which might be the win of the regionals so far. The 26-year-old out of Rio de Janeiro has his own merch. There he is. Former professional judo athlete right there, Lucas Almeida. It's only his 3rd appearance in the Open here in 2018. He has made his first regional. And he is the average for the men's side of things as an individual. The men's average is a 26-year-old, about 5, he's 5'6", but about 5'8", then 170 pounds. It's pretty much the body type, the athlete that we're dealing with, lanes 1 through 20.
Nothing I'd rather be called than the average.
Well, I don't mean that in a bad way, but there is Primo, the Brazilian favorite.
And we're talking, you asked me earlier, what should I be looking at? You should be looking at that center number on the console. That's that 149. That's his row pace. That's his average 500-meter split, meaning if he kept that pace, he would finish 500 meters in 1 minute and 49 seconds. And that is what's going to that's your world on the rower. That's dictating everything. How fast am I going? How slow am I going? Is this comfortable? And what you should know and what you should feel is at a pace that you're comfortable with. Because the difference between rowing a 145 for this, you're looking at more like a 2K. It's about 7 minutes, so you're looking at another minute 45. So they're getting off in a decent amount of time. But the difference between rowing a 145 and a 2 minute is that you might get 30 to 45 seconds on me. But I still have 300 double unders to make up a little bit of time. And I have a 3-mile run at the end that you taking off 30 seconds ahead of me isn't worrying me if I can come, or at least start that 3-mile, totally comfortable and warm. What you want to think about on this rower is by the time you're done with the 3,000 meters and 300 double unders, is that you are warmed up and ready to run. Not have that oh no moment when you hit rep 300 and realize that you might have come out a little too fast, and it's going to be a long 3 miles after that.
That goes to the point of know thyself, too. We were talking about it before we hit go. I'm a terrible rower. No one's going to catch me outside. So don't burn myself out in this area so that I've got nothing left for my strength at the end of it.
Right. And you think about in terms of 3 miles, it's like if I told you to run 3 miles, and what you don't see out here, and we should explain, is that we don't see any what? I don't see any assault runners.
Yeah, that's true too.
They didn't make it.
We didn't even. Wait a minute. So we buried the lead on that one. Yeah.
So now the fear of sitting on an assault runner for 3 miles is gone. You get to run outside. You get to do the things you've always been doing as training for it. Running an assault runner is a different world than just running outside for 400-meter laps.
Let's back that up for a second. There are no assault runners here in event number 1, and you'll also notice there was a shot a little bit earlier, and you can see it there. There's a Brazil logo on one of those Concept 2 rowers. The rowers are not all the same. They came from different boxes. This entire regional right now is being sourced for equipment locally. There is a truck strike in Brazil to protest diesel fuel prices being too high. They have almost doubled over the last 2 years, and basically Brazil's economy runs a lot through the trucking industry. The truck drivers said, no, we've had it. They have blockaded some highways. They have literally chained some trucks together. So some of the CrossFit, most of the CrossFit equipment, we did have the handstand walk obstacles that got here at 1 a.m. last night. Most of it is situated right now at blockades some 60 kilometers away. So what you're looking at are the rowers and the barbells and the dumbbells and whatever else could be found, literally a rig tomorrow, from boxes locally here in Brazil, which is both the tough side of the situation we're in right now. We don't have anything. And the great side, the community of CrossFit came together and said, like, this will be our finest hour. We're going to make this happen. Here is our stuff. Bring it back Monday.
And it's a word that's synonymous with CrossFit, and that is community. And we've had lots of examples of, I think the most ridiculous example is athletes done with the event cheering on that one person that can't finish. They're like, oh, that's community. No, that's not community. That's just, I said it's a shark feeding frenzy. That's what that is. But to have a community come together and be the sole reason that a regional is getting to take place, that is community.
Yeah, it doesn't happen if there isn't stuff. Bottom line. Somebody disassembled their rig. CrossFit Crown here in Rio de Janeiro had its rig disassembled, brought here to the arena. Rogue did not have the time to put it together today, which is why team event number 3 happened this morning instead of team event 2. That will happen tomorrow as Rogue has the time to get the rig together. But the CrossFit community literally making this happen. Now, there are no assault runners because of that, though. You run outside. And we do have our first off of the rower, and it is Batuke Iribarren. We mentioned him from Jump Street. This is the veteran out of Buenos Aires, 5 times a regional athlete. And there's our second off as well.
And there's the excitement of people getting off the rower and transitioning into this next section.
Lucas Rosa, we mentioned CrossFit Crown, by the way. It's his box where the rig has come from. So Rosa is in to the double unders. 9 double under participants at this moment. Rosa, a regional qualifier in 2014, the last time there was a Latin American regional.
So now we're looking at 300 double unders. And there's one of these hard to trust, I would say, plans when it comes to this volume. right? I'm about to embark on a 3-mile run after a 3,000-meter row, and I have these 300 double unders in between. It's just kind of like an annoyance. This is a just because you can doesn't mean you should scenario. Just because you can do 3 sets of 100 double unders unbroken doesn't mean you should, right? And I found that personally, my own, say, trial and error come up in the open. All right, we have an open event that had 400 double unders per round for 800 total. And I found that actually breaking up the double unders more made the workout so much easier. Yes, I went a little bit slower. However, how I felt coming out of each set allowed me to push harder in the parts that really mattered. Killing yourself on 300 double unders before you have to embark on a 22 to 26 minute effort for 30 seconds isn't worth it. I mean, think of how many, they're gonna run 12 400 meters outside. I just gotta make up 3 seconds on you a lap. That's it. And that's if you're going as hard as I can and I'm going as hard as I can. So pacing yourself through here is imperative to have a successful campaign through the rest of it. Now, if you can just yawn through these, yeah, do what you do best, get through them and get outside. But if this is a struggle, we don't need to make it harder than it needs to be.
Double unders are one of the easier movements in CrossFit, I would think, to reset as well. You know, if you're snatching to take a break, you got to put the bar down, you're going to step aside. You're going to take a deep breath, you're going to re-walk up to it, you're going to set yourself, check your feet, check your hands, go. If you're in a double under and you need to take a break, just stop jumping and then start jumping again.
Yeah. And it's a pure rest too. You know, there's really no room to rest on a rower. There's no room to rest on a run. But here it is, that little break, saving your calves, saving your lungs, because you're going to need those coming up.
You can sense the tired nature a little bit there for Batuke, and you can start to see hands move a little bit more in the double under. You want that kind of crisp movement. You don't want a lot of movement in your wrists. And the more your arms start to go, the more it taxes you and maybe the more tired you are. And how about that? Just cruising Lucas Rosa through the double unders, and he is out and running. See ya. As the field now starts to catch up on the run.
All right, so these guys heading out right about 14:30. We're coming up to that 15-minute mark, but I mean, I hope they can recover. Just kind of look at them laboring, shaking their arms out, breathing heavy. I'd be very curious to see how they maintain that.
Now, if you can run a 22-minute, essentially 5K here,
yes,
3-mile run, you're going to hit this in about 37 minutes, which is an elite level compared to where the previous regionals were.
And that's after 3,000-meter row, 300 double unders, 3-mile run, triple threes, a repeat event from the games in 2014. And if you're asking someone to do a 22-minute 5K, that is not an unreasonable thing to ask, maybe fresh. After that, you know, that's a little bit different story. But what's kind of different than we'll see, obviously it's different because we're not doing air assault runners. But now you have an opportunity to pace off the field. You can see where people are at. You can see how fast they're going. And that also allows you to play the field a little bit.
Now, Iribarren is in this front pack here. He just fell off the screen. There he is at the back of this front four. His best 5K, and this is not a 5K, this is just shy of that, but his best 5K is 19:47. He's not going to run that here.
No.
But we just said if you can run a 22-minute one, well, there's some cushion in there if he does his best work here.
Absolutely.
The athletes will come in, run a little bit through the arena, and then circle back through before heading back outside.
It's kind of nice. So you get a little shot of AC at the midpoint of every 400 meter.
Right. It's also a changing surface, for what that's worth.
Yeah.
You're running a little bit on brick, a little bit on some cushion, a little bit on some concrete. You do have to be careful running out there as well.
Yeah,
there are
we
a couple
figured
of
that
loose
out
bricks.
last night. We found out last night there's actually some holes in the concrete out there that you don't want to be stepping in.
And a water bottle. Lucas Rosa is in the hat and the black shirt on the front side of this. I believe Pablo Chalfun is with him in the blue trunks. Out of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil as well, Valente CrossFit. And this is a competition he should be really good at. He competes in half Ironmans. That's what he's looking forward to next after this. So this is his deal. Rosa was the first one off of the rower, and you can see he's been caught here a little bit, so there is a chance to both make up and or lose time on this run.
Well, you know, it's lap 2 of 12, so we still have quite a ways to go for these guys to catch their breath. I mean, I know some people is like, you know, just rest on the first couple of laps, get your legs back underneath you. Kind of find that insulting, is like, how do I catch my breath when I run? I don't understand. It is doable. And so what, how he looked getting off the double unders and now how he looks now. He looks much better. You know, could just kind of got his feet back underneath him.
We have one athlete remaining on the double unders. It's Rodrigo Valenzuela, who still has yet to make his way out to the run. A 5-time regional athlete. He did compete in the Super South last year. The double unders just getting the best of him here. And again, there is the front of your pack. The two in front are Chalfun and Rosa in the blue trunks and the black shirt. Those are the two at the beginning of this lap, lead lap. Let's talk about the differences between running outside and the assault runner.
Oh, man. Okay.
The assault runner is what made this hard. That was what everybody said, oh, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, it's like when triple threes came out, you're like, oh, hell yeah. Okay, long event. Might not be fun to watch. Might kind of be hard to broadcast. But it's a great test of just engine and work capacity. I love that we're starting our first 3 events using 3 different modalities in a triplet form, meaning all 3 of these movements in this event are monostructural modality, which is running, rowing, double unders count, biking. And it's just, have you been working on your endurance? Okay, well, here's a 49-minute capped event to see how well you have that going on. And when the assault runner was introduced, that is when people started, the moaning and groaning came out, because running on the assault runner kind of feels like you're just running slightly uphill the entire time. Your hamstrings get blown up, your calves get blown up.
It's a manual treadmill, by the way, for people that don't know.
So this isn't...
You run, it moves. It does not move if you don't run.
Yeah, it's like a traditional treadmill where it's just moving and you're just, make sure you get your feet down and don't fall flat on your face. Like, that's a lot different than an assault runner. The assault runner moves because you are moving it. You literally have to get your foot out in front.
It's an assault.
Pull it back. Yeah. And it's an assault on the hamstrings and calves especially. And it's just so boring as an athlete to sit there in one spot for 25 minutes essentially just trying not to fall off the darn thing because you're trying to keep your balance. So these guys have been given a gift of running outside in terms of ease and in terms of just at least you get some change of scenery now and then.
Last week, everybody was talking about Katrin, David's daughter, just having a great time, smiling, waving.
Yeah.
You know, you're just kind of, in some way, trying to pass the time out there. Here, scenery changes, you're going somewhere. You feel like you're doing something as opposed to just running in place. And you can see the tax that it takes on you as Lucas Rosa has now lost his shirt and cap. So Rosa has just taken the shirt off. He has sweat through that. You could see the cap sweating as well. So he had taken his gray hat off as the sweat line rose. So Rosa still on the front side of this. Chalfoun is behind him. The 25-year-old out of Rio de Janeiro, 40th last year in the South Super Regional. He is an American football player, by the way, down here in Brazil. Talk about the spread of that sport, and he looks like a linebacker.
Yeah.
See what kind of impact that has on some strength workouts as we work through the regional. I loved Chalfoun's take on being here as well. He said, listen, when I work out at home, I'm at my home box, I'm around great athletes, but when I come to regionals and we go through these events and these tests, everyone is legit.
Oh, yeah.
There is no drop off. You look left and right, you're being pushed. So Chalfoun has now passed Rosa. He is your new leader. Well, Chalfoun and Rosa have now both fallen behind a bit. It's Nicolas Bidarche who has jumped out in front. So there is Nicolas Bidarche, the 24-year-old out of Buenos Aires in Argentina. We just talked about everyone around you being legit. Bidarche saying if he doesn't go to the games, that means somebody else worked harder than him. And he's not okay with that. And he has fought his way to the front of the pack here in Triple Three.
Well, when he was coming out of the double unders tied up, I wasn't sure how he was going to handle this run just because he looked so smoked coming off the rower in the double unders, but he's reeled it back in. And has actually pulled him. He's pulled ahead, and I think we kind of lost track of him in the beginning because those guys were all tied up in the very beginning. But he's moved well ahead as we see some guys walking on the outside.
Where does the walk side come into it? Is it one of those things where if you need a break, sure, but
no,
but
not that guy.
At least you need to be able to try to move in some sort of jog to keep yourself going.
Sort of. The walk is you've given up. If you're walking out here and it's only been the first 4 laps, you have conceded your event number 1. Now,
that might be the case. Some guys are not the endurance
I
guys.
Get it. If you're going to get last, might as not, well, kill yourself. And I'm not opposed to that strategy. In fact, if my athlete was going to be bottom 5, I'm like, look, just be bottom 5 and get the workout done.
But where it matters is that there's one spot to the games right now, and it's hard if you're going to finish that low. It's hard to bounce back. However,
Oh yeah, your weekend is done
Yeah.
if you're walking out there. But you can still have a competitive weekend. That's the deal. It's like, look, if you're going to get last because you are not a runner, well then there's no reason to pretend like you are and then kill yourself before you get to Linda. Maybe he's going to crush Linda, which is going to be coming up later. So strengths and weaknesses, we all have them. We have our good events, we have our bad events, and there's no reason to make a bad event harder than it needs to be. And that's why you probably see someone walking out there.
It right now is Bidarche, Chalfoun, and Rosa at the top of the pack. And you can see the 5 fingers.
Yeah.
That's either John Cena or a reminder that you are that far in. 49-minute cap in our first individual event. Sigurdur Throsterson from Europe last week did this in 35:25. That is the event record. The lowest score to advance came from Jared Enderton, 41:58. That was in the south. And the elevation in Salt Lake City, I'm sure, had something to do with that. The average scores from all of the regionals, 39:47 in the east, 40:04 was the average amongst finishers in Europe, and 43:49 was the average amongst finishers in the south. So those are the numbers to look at in terms of being at the front of the pack, or it's our first real glimpse at where Latin America stacks up as a regional in its return to the regionals
and
against everyone else.
Yeah, and this will be a hard one to kind of judge that off of because they're not using assault runners and they do get to run outside.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's assuming that the course is exactly 400 meters to begin with.
Depends if you run inside or outside.
There's a lot of variables in play here, but you know, kind of seeing how they get through the first part might be a little bit more of an indication. But you know, you have your top 3 guys that remain your top 3 guys as they start to lap the rest of the field. And it'll be hard to tell how the Latin American regional stacks up after Linda because,
There's
you know,
no bench
based
press.
off the equipment, they had to do some modifications, so you won't see bench press.
I tell you, Bidarche just he's got a flow. He's got a motor. He seems in control. He doesn't seem tired at all. You look at Rosa, and you get the sense that he's in control and he's got a gas tank left, but he also looks like he's exerted. Bidarche, just going. And Chalfoun has just jumped in front. But again, watch Bidarche. He has not changed his pace at all. And he closes the gap a little bit on Chalfoun as they turn the corner.
And now you're going to probably see a lot of this cat and mouse stuff for the next, we'll say, third or quarter left of this 3 miles because they are your top 3. There's no one challenging them from behind. And now they're just mix and matching here at the top. And there's a lot of different things that can come into play. One is, this is just heat 1. There's a whole nother heat of 20 guys after this, so you can't let off the gas too much and just play the game within your heat with these 3 athletes. You have to remember that there's 20 more that are watching you go, getting your splits off the row, getting your splits out of the double under, and watching your pace on the run. And so they have a blueprint that you are setting. Now, what's easier for someone waiting in the wings? Seeing you pace this out and not race your competitors, or seeing you take it to everybody? Personally, I'd be more nervous if someone threw down a killer time, forcing the action to my hand, as opposed to you going slow, nobody finishing the event, and now I just got to do good in my heat, and I don't have to worry about anybody else.
Sure. Think of this very much like what it is, too. You know, don't look at it as triple threes and a CrossFit Games regionals test. Think of this right now as a race. That is truly what this is. This is a 3-mile race at this point, and compare it like you would be watching an Olympic race, or think about a horse race or speed skating or whatever. As these guys are running, there has to be a strategy here. And, you know, if you're Bidarche, who's fallen off pace a little bit now, well, has he fallen off pace because he's tired and he's losing steam, or is he falling off pace because I know where I'm supposed to be and I'm biding my time until we get to the final lap or the final 2 laps, and I'm going to make my move, and that's when you go. I'm going to lie in wait, and I'll lie in wait, and I'll lie in wait. As long as I can see you,
yes,
I'll make my move late, and I'll take it.
And you can, and that's kind of the fun part about having these athletes run outside, is that you can watch everybody.
You don't know that on the assault runner.
Right, and so, yes, you know, Bidarche was in front, now he's behind. He seems to be giving up more distance per every 100 meters than I think he would like to, which might speak to more of he's just kind of getting gassed. However, you have an entire inside track to sprint past everybody at the final bell lap, you could say, which is just the last lap. And just wait in the weeds, like you were saying, is to pass everybody at the end.
What's also notable is there's no straightaway to finish on. There is no stretch to come around. The finish of this run is really around a couple of bends. So if you're going to go all out, you have to make your move even a little bit earlier than the finish.
Yeah, it's not like a track where you have a 100-meter straightaway to kind of catch everybody, or even on a long turn. There's a lot of tight turns in here. So if you make your move, you got to make sure you have the feet underneath you to make it.
Chalfoun checking the rearview mirror as Rosa comes up behind him. He began CrossFit as prep for his playing of American football. That's the draw of this sport, by the way. How many CrossFit athletes do you talk to that say, well, I started CrossFit because I was a judo athlete and I needed something for my conditioning? How long have you done CrossFit? 6 years. How long did you stop doing judo? 5.5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I was the same way as that. I started CrossFit because I needed some cross training to back up my triathlon training. You know, I did half Ironmans, full Ironmans. I swam in college, and I wanted to do CrossFit to get, I don't know, some more muscle tone, some more fast twitch going, and then about 6 months into it, I stopped the other sport and just kept doing CrossFit.
35:25 is the event record. That's from Throsterson last week in Europe. The average finish, though, you're looking about once you get close to 40 minutes is the average finish time from both the East and from Europe last week. And we'll take the South as the outlier at the high elevation in Salt Lake City. And there's your 3 right now. Or rather, there's your 2 with Chalfoun and Rosa. Two laps remaining for these two men. And Rosa takes a little bit of a pass as he comes outside, and he looks like he's leaving Chalfoun a little bit, trying to gain a few steps. This is a big event for Lucas Rosa. He injured his wrist recently and opted not to have surgery participating in the regional. This is an event that does not require, now certainly it did on the double unders in the rower, and he's okay enough to compete.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where the run doesn't matter. If he can get through this and earn some big-time points and give himself a little bit of leeway on something that might be more taxing on a part of his body he wants to protect a bit, it matters.
Oh, man, he turned that corner and just shut down. Look at that.
Yeah. He had built this big lead, and then it vanished, and here comes Chalfoun.
Now, I don't know if, that was a strategy, kind of shake out. And here's the advantage that, Rosa have, who's on the left over Chalfoun, is that he's got stride on his side. The guy's got some long legs to work with. Now, that's an opportunity there. He can kind of kick it in gear and open things up a little bit easier, especially when we're coming up. He's finishing lap 11, so they'll have one more to go. And I don't know if he opened it up soon, like he started, and then just kind of forced Xiaohun to catch him, which is part of the game.
Yep.
You know, it's like, I'm going to take it out and make you catch me. Now I'm going to rest until the last lap.
This is the last 400. Xiaohun and Rosa for a Heat 1 win in Event 1. Keep in mind, there are 20 athletes in each heat. There are only 2 heats. So this is essentially heats 1 and 2 for another event.
Okay, now let's look at the logistics of where they are on the competition floor. You have to run to your lane to get to the finish line.
True.
When you come in the arena, it goes from 1 to 20. Lucas Rosa on the left is in lane 2.
Xiaohun's way down.
Xiaohun is in lane 20, which means
Rosa's got a huge lead.
He's behind him, but he's actually in the lead right now.
And it's not a benefit to one or the other. Xiaohun had longer to run to start the run to get outside. Or I should say flip that around.
Right. So Rosa, who's leading, is going to be in the first lane as soon as they get in the building.
Yep.
I don't know if Xiaohun's even thought about that throughout this process.
No.
He's going to have to be at least 30 meters ahead of Rosa if he wants to beat him to the finish line.
So while it looks like they've been neck and neck this whole time, and while they probably thought they have, Rosa had run longer just to get outside. That's a great catch. I didn't even think about it either. That's why they pay him the big bucks.
I don't know.
The average finish in the East was the best finish last week, 39:47. We are coming up on that. Rosa in the building.
And there you go.
And you
Rosa
gotta run
turning in on 20.
down your lane. Rosa will pull away. Lucas Rosa in his hometown of Rio is a Heat 1, Event 1 winner. And Xiaohun, also home in Rio, is over the line. And they're coming in fast and furious behind now as well. Boy, Bidarche really fell off pace. Manuel Gallegos is the third to come in. Gallegos out of Mexico, the 25-year-old. Now Bidarche is in. And look at the separator between 4 and the field. And by that I mean, look at the fact that we haven't shown you anybody else running yet. And there's no one making the turn to come down a lane. And now here it is. Down from lane 3. Never mind, this is Lucas Almeida. Correct, down from lane 3. And now here's Fabio De Kiki out of Sao Paulo in Brazil. From CrossFit Thribo, he comes in to finish 5th. Sixth, Uriel Bloch. He's out of Big Recoleta. Of course, made their name as a team last year, getting to the games. Now here comes Batuke Iribarren, who we mentioned early. Look at the sprint! Leave it all out on the floor. Racing for positioning, and you might say, hey, it's silly right now, but points matter.
When you're only taking one, points matter.
Anderon Primo. And here's the thing, Anderon Primo is here to win. Anderon Primo is one of the favorites. He knows a spot matters, even if it's the difference between 9th and 10th.
And I think in an event like this one probably doesn't play to his strengths, seeing how the Open kind of went for him, which the Open is more of just kind of like work capacity, breathing hard type of events you have for that test. So this one may have been just a damage control event for Primo.
Mariano Sanchez is in. Sanchez out of Buenos Aires. He is also a big Recoleta. Here's a foot race. It's three ways. Sebastian Calabro, Hilson Duarte. And the cap is at 49, and from the looks of it appears like most of, if not everyone, will get in underneath of that. I believe there are 5 runners still outside, counting judges. Alain Davidson just came in. He was in the purple Misfit shirt out of CrossFit Condado in Panama City, Panama. And here's Pedro Castro with the burners, sartorial splendor, the bright shoes, and the mustache of all mustaches in this regional. Pedro Castro is gassed. Here is Sebastian Calabro. And from the looks of it, we have just one out there.
And it's the one we saw that was having a walk earlier, and I think the question was, is it strategy? Is it just necessity? I think the one thing we hope it's not is just some type of injury, you know. But just pacing it out, kind of waving the white flag right from the beginning, you know, it's just sometimes people just really don't like to run. And if that's the case, like I said before, save a little bit of energy going into tonight's event with Linda. You know, we go from straight monostructural, some running, rowing, and double unders into straight barbell work tonight.
Well, you got plenty of time. That is not the question at this point. All right, while they're finishing up here on the end of Heat 1, Event 1, we can check down with Teffy, who has our Heat winner, Lucas Rosa.
This is the longest we've been on the competition floor here at Regionals. What was your strategy going into this event?
Bom, a minha estratégia durante o evento foi manter entre os primeiros. Nas últimas 3 voltas tentar dar uma velocidade maior para chegar em primeiro lugar. Foi essa a estratégia, manter entre os primeiros. Nas últimas 3, tentar vencer o evento.
His strategy was to stay still and then to go heavy or go hard on the last 3 rounds. It paid off. The CrossFit community came together to make this event happen. How do you feel about that?
Bom, a respeito da comunidade, sobre a comunidade ajudar com esse regional, ajudando a gente nesse regional, só dá mais força para o brasileiro mostrar que quer muito chegar aos CrossFit Games, que a gente tem chance sim. Ainda mesmo sendo só uma vaga, ainda mostra mais ainda que a comunidade quer ajudar o brasileiro a chegar lá. E a gente, os brasileiros, vamos fazer o máximo possível para botar um atleta individual lá dentro.
It shows how CrossFit community, especially here in Brazil, only having one spot at regionals, they're encouraging to go one of those athletes to go to Games. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Eu que agradeço. Muito obrigado. Brasil!
Congratulations to Lucas Rosa and Teffy. Thank you for translating for us as well, by the way.
And you see that laboring. Look at it, just a little bit of a limp in the gait, and that just might be the thing I was kind of worried about. You know, I can't project anything that's actually going wrong, but you know, this is probably why we saw that walk earlier in this event, just because of, you know, it's a long way to run and after double unders and a little bit of row. So I hope nothing is actually wrong, but I can see why that walking was kind of happening in the beginning.
With just a minute 45 left in the cap.
Atletas da segunda bateria já estão posicionados. Já já a gente apresenta eles para vocês. 1 minuto e meio para o fim.
É isso aí, 1 minuto e meio. Vou pedir o agito da torcida para o atleta Rodrigo assim que ele entrar aqui na arena. Vou me sentir.
This is a tough spot to be as well when you know it's you.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been there before.
This is where the inner fight has to come for you as well. This is Rodrigo Valenzuela, who had a difficult time with the double unders too. Remember, he was the last one off of the double unders. So as Valenzuela is coming around with a minute left in the cap. While Valenzuela is finishing things off, we will take a look at Lucas Rosa and how he was able to salt away.
And this was just about 10 minutes ago, and Rosa with the backwards cap coming in to grab some water before he goes off in the run. And you know what he said is, like, I just try to stay relaxed until about the last 3 laps. And, you know, it's a 3-way tie kind of early on. Chalfoun in the front part, he's leading your top 3 guys, and Rosa just kind of hung back there. And then it was that second to last lap where he really stretched it out early and then shut it down. You see him shaking out his arms to make Chalfoun. And I think this is kind of like just kind of a come get me, burn you out just a little bit. But it is that last final stretch that he turned it on, and benefit to him was sitting in lane number 2 right when he came out of the last turn. And so 39.01 unofficially for Lucas Rosa. I'd like to see how that holds up in the next heat, knowing full well they now have a time to beat.
Talk about wasting no time. Latin America Regional Event 1, Heat 2 on the men's side of things. They literally cleared off the floor from Heat 1. The competitors sat down for Heat 2, and they sounded the horn.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Well, you know, 49 minutes of work to get the first heat done and a 1-minute transition to start the second.
We talked about Enderon Primo being in that first matchup. There are some other key guys to watch here in heat number 2. In lane 9 is Luis Oscar Mora, who has previously been to the games as a teen. Emmanuel Maldonado is in lane 5. He has been to the games as the winner of this regional, the last time they hosted it back in 2014. So Emmanuel Maldonado, also the only athlete from Puerto Rico down here today. And then we have our so-called favorite, Ivan Gaitan, who went to the games with big friends last year. There you're going to look at Maldonado. So 3 of the names I think a lot of people earmarked coming into this here in this heat.
I really like the tempo and stroke for Maldonado, center part of your screen in the black t-shirt. It's just long stretch. He's not really using his arms too much, but he's got some length on him relative to the other athletes in the field. And this is the pace that you need for a 3,000-meter row buy-in. That's a horrible buy-in. Here's your buy-in to the event, 3,000 meters of rowing. Congratulations. Welcome to regionals. But that's the pace you want. It's a nice, long, easy stroke, completely relaxed, and just just kind of settle into your own pace. What you should be at the end of this 3,000 meters is warm. not fatigued. If you're coming off breathing hard and gasping for air, we went the wrong direction.
There aren't many times you go on the lake and see a rower all out. Rowing is by nature a strength activity, and it is a slow activity. Slow and strong will generate some power and some speed, and that's exactly what you would like to replicate. A rower is not a piece of cardio equipment. A rower is a real thing. Like, you can go in a boat and row, and it is that movement here that you want to bring to the CrossFit Regionals competition floor. An easy, relaxed stroke.
Look at their screen and what pace some of these guys are going. Maldonado, he's in the Rep Your Fitness shirt. He's sitting at about a 150, 149, and just to his left, you saw more of a 155 pace, and they have two different strokes. Look how long and smooth Maldonado is on this rower. About 26 strokes per minute, 159 pace.
Which is a good
It's
strokes
great.
per minute.
That's all you need. I think you want, for this length, if you're sitting around 27 to 24, that's a pretty good rate, and that's just how many strokes in a minute you do. So you're looking at one every 2.25 seconds, which is nice. And to the left, look how short that stroke is, right? A little bit shorter, a little bit more choppy. The chain is flopping around a little bit, and what that is that you can see, watch him on the left in the white, pull the handle to his chest, and that's Mauro Acevedo, and that chain just kind of flop around a bit. That's just lost tension on the concept too, and what's lost tension is lost power. Maldonado on the right, straight in, straight out, that chain barely moves. It's just more efficiency. Now, if Acevedo is even going the same pace, he's still working twice as hard. And so when you're looking at this, yes, it's a simple movement as a rower, but you still want to make sure is that technique is so important on all these things. I mean, people forget, it's like technique is everywhere. Everywhere you do it, whether it's on the bike, whether it's double unders, whether it's a rower, even running, is that the more efficient you can be, the easier it is. The easier it is, the harder you can go, and the faster you can go, and you won't have to work as hard.
It's a brutal event for Acevedo, by the way, as well. He told us there are a couple of things he struggles with and a couple of things he wants to improve upon. We asked that of all of the competitors. He wants to improve upon most his toes to bar and cardio, and he struggles with double unders.
Okay.
That's 2 out of 3 here in event number 1. So it's one of those things where if you're Mauro Acevedo, you kind of want to get through this one and make sure you don't kill yourself so you're still in a striking distance
Yeah,
after.
so maybe his buy-in to the weekend is the entire triple threes and not just the 3,000-meter row. And if that's the case, then make sure you're not killing yourself here. Because if he's good with a barbell, which most people who hate running and double unders and rowing are, then make sure you set yourself up for the second event of the day. The worst thing you can do is to work so hard and get nothing from it, that you get so tired you can't even take advantage of what you're good at in the first place.
Chegamos a 6 minutos aqui na raia de número 20, o atleta Pablo Alves, restando 1.280 metros para concluir o segmento de remo. André Sanches, 1.185 metros restando, 1.300 metros para Omar Martinez.
And you're looking at all these guys go. We're right about 6:30, so I would say more around the 7 or 8 minute mark is when they'll be getting into their last 1,000 meters. As you see Maldonado dipping underneath the 12:50 mark in terms of meters left, still maintaining that 149 pace. There's no better feeling in the world to have that much composure on a rower and to still get off somewhere in the top 5. You know, I'm not sure where the rest of the field stands in line with him, but in terms of relaxed pace, you know, just getting a good sweat, like I said, when you get off the 3K, you want to be warm, not tired. And there's a major difference between the two, especially when you move into 300 double unders.
You know what that is? That's confidence personified. That's a guy who knows how to row. You got to look at Emmanuel Maldonado's monitor on your left there as well. So that's a front and back picture. But that is a guy who knows how to row, who knows his speed, who knows his tempo,
Look
who
at
knows
his
what
face.
he's doing.
All right, here's the best part. Here's the best part. This dude's been rowing a 150 since he started, and as soon as you put his monitor on his screen, he dropped to a 145.
Oh, well, you know what the deal is, too? You see his eyes. He's looking up.
Yeah, he's looking at it.
So the TV, what you're watching on your picture, is being broadcast in the arena opposite of the rowers. So Maldonado is looking up at the video board in the arena to see that everybody is watching A, him,
Yes.
and B, his monitor.
However, everyone else in the field is also looking at his monitor and his pace. So, yes, it's kind of cool. Personally, I would try to flip my monitor back so nobody can see where I was at
Well,
or where I was
can't touch
rowing,
the
because
monitor.
if I'm by myself, I was like, look, I'm going to do my thing. Only people that can see me on my left or my right, they're not keeping pace with me. Now you threw my pace up on the Jumbotron. I'd try to knock my monitor over so nobody could see what I was doing.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. The record pace for a 3,000-meter row, and this is not the fastest the row was accomplished last week. It's the fastest the row was accomplished in the fastest overall time for the event. Was 10:30. Sigurdur Thrastarsson last week in Europe. We are a minute and a half from that. And you see the different paces. Just look down the line. It'll be a pull, hold, a pull, slow row back in, and I think that's probably the best way to go about it.
Let me tell you what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
If you pull and hold, you're doing it wrong.
Correct.
Right? So when that handle comes in, watch these guys pull to their chest and what their hands do. What should happen is it's a tap and go. Right? See there in the front part of your screen, pull to the chest, release. Pull to the chest, release. Release. That's good. More to the right, you'll see kind of that pause at the knee, right side of your screen. That's okay, not ideal, but you don't want to hold at the back of your chest because all you're doing is working harder and you're not even rowing. Tap the chest, release the arms as quick as you can, lean over, take a big deep breath in, and then get back out.
Be your own internal metronome. Pull,
exactly.
Relax, relax, pull. The rest is on the in, so take your breath on the way back in, and then pull. Take your breath and pull. And that's when you go back to a Maldonado and you see the way he was going. He gets the good, and there's the relax, there's the pull. And he takes the breath as the...
And he's just chilling. And that's what you want. A 150 row pace is very easy to hold, not necessarily for 300 meters, but if you're proficient, it's good. So I'd like to see who's first off, and that'll be
Samuel Ariza.
Yeah. And he looks relaxed. Lane 1 as well.
Andres Sanchez, who is the second to the jump rope.
Good, and just kind of look at these guys' faces. Nice and relaxed. Shoulders not bouncing too much.
There's Ariza on the left. Andres Sanchez on the right out of Sao Paulo here in Brazil. He was second in the country coming out of the Open. So he's a guy that comes into this feeling pretty good about where he stands, high expectations of himself. This is Ariza's first appearance in a regional, his fourth year ever entering the Open. He was 8th in Mexico.
And these guys have to advance every 100 double unders, which is fine. Again, I said before is that, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Going 100 unbroken is not necessary if it's smoking you to get there. Break it up. If you can just keep pace with everybody else. And you want to come off these double unders no more tired than you were coming off the road. That's the big goal. Break these up. Now see that hands on your knees, hunched over breathing. I think that might be a little too much intensity for the middle part of this event.
Let's talk about what happened there when he took the break too, and where the judge comes into this factor. Because let's give a shout out to judging. Judging double unders has got to be one of the hardest things ever, because to keep count of the rope it's hard enough to do it when you're jumping, but to watch somebody do double unders and keep count.
Oh yeah, especially 300 of them. I mean, we're talking about full concentration. And there's a big difference between losing count by a few reps and a few tens of reps. So being, like I said, that's a lot of stress. Judging is no fun, I'll be honest. Judging is the worst. There's a lot of stress, there's a lot of pressure. You kind of dictate the flow, the sanctity of the event, so to speak. So it is amazing to have volunteers like that give their time and effort to make sure that this event is legit as possible.
Admittedly, I struggle with math, but we've all had that moment where you're going 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 75. Oh, boy.
Yeah, oh, man, that was way easier than my first 100.
And you see Sanchez struggling through these double unders. On the left of your screen, and this is money. Ariza, similar and actually opposite of what we talked about with Mauro Acevedo, where he hated the endurance stuff. Ariza, his two favorite things, he likes rowing, he likes double unders.
Well,
welcome to your event.
Yeah, and I hope you like running, because you got 3 miles of it after that. So done around 13:30. That's a real decent pace coming off that. I mean, that's pretty quick. All right, and that sets yourself up pretty well if you can kind of get ahead of the field a little bit. I think one thing, too, having the advantage of getting out first is that it's a long time to be breaking any spirits now. But if you can get halfway through and around, the chase factor kind of deadens a little bit. I mean, look, here's just a perfect example, right? No one's in the screen as he gets out there. But like I said, is running someone down, being that far away, the incentive kind of dies a little bit. So it's good if you can get out, play to your strengths. If that row and double unders were easy for you, congratulations. What I hope he didn't do is row too fast just because he was good at it.
Again, this is triple three, 3,000 meter row, 300 double unders, and a 3-mile run. Everywhere else on an assault runner, but as we've talked about a couple of times on the broadcast today, because of the truck strike with rising diesel fuel costs here in Brazil, there are no assault runners. So this is a 3-mile run outside, 12 laps of 400 meters. There are some positives and some benefits to that. Now it is literally a race. On the assault runner, you're racing yourself. You can't see anyone else's monitor.
You're racing other people, but there's nothing you can see while you're on there. And it's like, oh, they don't get to use the equipment. I was like, man, if I was in a Latin American regional right now, I'd be so stoked I don't have to run 3 miles on an assault runner. So these guys are lucking out, I would say, at least in this particular event. But the 3 miles here, 12 400-meter laps is what they'll be doing. And he has a very decent lead, so that's lap 1 for Ariza.
Agustin Riquelme was the second out to the run. 21-year-old out of Buenos Aires. And is an interesting young guy to watch. As much as Luis Oscar Mora gets touted as the top guy among the youth in this regional because he's been to the games, Riquelme did go to the South Regional last year. He was 34th. He was 24th as a teen 4 years ago.
And just how fast Ariza's going is that, we didn't see a lot of lapping until the later laps in the previous heat. And that kind of what can happen here is that if you're not paying attention chasing this guy down, you can lose track of where he is. Because there's going to be so many people out there on the laps, is that, where I thought you weren't there, or I mistook you for someone else. So if he can just kind of keep pushing just a little bit more, maybe 2 or 3 more laps to kind of pull away from the rest of the field, maybe they lose sight of you, you might be able to hide just a little bit in that. It was funny as I was talking about the row and the double unders, how that stroke was a little bit inefficient for Acevedo. He's sitting in second right now. So then what he said he didn't like,
what good are you?
He handled pretty well.
He crushed it.
Yeah.
Now it's a distant second.
Yeah, true, but you got to think about competition is that it doesn't always have to be sexy as long as it gets the work done. Now, training regimen inside your gym, and we're always looking for, efficacy and virtuosity, but, when it comes down to these, it's whatever gets the job done safely and efficiently and as fast as I can, because in the end here, all that matters is a score on the board.
Sammy Ariza's cruising.
It's one of those is that when a lot of these guys come off the double unders, they look like they're laboring a little bit. Their pace is a little slow. They're kind of shuffle running instead of opening it up. But, athletes who are well conditioned, and Ariza's looking better on this third lap than he did on his first two, is that you can recover. You can kind of get your wind back, so to speak, by running just a little bit slower if you are conditioned enough to do so. But he looks much more comfortable on the third lap than he has on his first two.
He's also staved off the cotton allergy. The shirt has been on the whole time here for...
Oh, it's like you got to save it.
It's the biggest dramatic moment is what happens. That's... Also notable about Ariza, and we talked about this in the last heat as well, Ariza is also battling a wrist injury, and it's one that he said will be noticeable depending on the event here at regionals.
What is it about the top guys in these heats with wrist injuries and fast runs?
So make up the ground. When you've got it, earn yourself some points here.
Well, that's part of it too. If you are suffering from a wrist injury, push presses and cleans are not going to feel very good later in the afternoon.
Nope.
So maybe you do have to push the pace here and get as many points as you can early, knowing you might be suffering a little bit later.
Said he's limited by some mobility in that wrist. Handstand walk, handstand push-up, he said first and foremost. And there goes the cotton.
Well, I said you got to save it, at the last moment. Taking the shirt off is kind of the NOS equivalent of car racing. Just a little bit of a boost, a little bit of a breather.
Thing is you can't even see who's behind him. He is that much in front here. It is Heat 2, Event 1 here of the men's individual competition in the Latin American Regionals, back for the first time since 2014. And Tommy Marquez was talking about in the preview all of the reasons why Latin America has a regional again this year. That's it right there. Second worldwide in the open in total athletes added. Brazil is the only country outside of the United States with more than 1,000 affiliates. And
that's amazing.
That's crazy. And even the other countries, the smaller countries, when you say, hey, where's CrossFit going in Guatemala or Uruguay, they all give you the impression that it's growing, it's catching speed, and Latin America is going to become one of those regionals that in 2019, 2020, 2021, all of a sudden their hope is it's not a one spot to the games regional, but one where
for sure
you're going to know the daughters. There's going to be Latin American daughters. You know what I mean?
Yes. And I think, people forget it's like, oh, CrossFit's been around for 10, 11, going on 12 years in terms of the CrossFit Games. That's nothing when you talk about the birth of a sport. I tell people all the time is like, back in 2010 when, I made the games, I was playing football with leather helmets. That's basically the equivalent of what we were back then.
Seems unsafe for the times.
It seems unsafe, right? And fast forward another 6-7 years, what is happening at the regional level is greater than 10 times more competitive than what happened at the games at that level in 2010, 2011. It's only going to get bigger. It's only going to get better. These athletes are going to get stronger. They're going to get faster. And Latin America, with the growth of the sport, when they cast a wider net of athletes, will catch up to the rest of the world, and it shows you that they are at a near exponential rate.
Guilherme Dominguez gave us that quote where he said, "This is our games," because Latin America is still growing. We're still trying to catch Europe and the United States. And when you think about where those continents and regions were 10 years ago,
right?
Well, now apply that math here. Think about where this will be, and you're going to start to, we asked everybody who they look up to in CrossFit. And for the most part, they all gave us, we got a lot of Fronings, we got a lot of Fraziers, we got a lot of the daughters. One person said, Anita Pravati.
Yep.
And when you can start to say, I'm looking up to people in my own country, it starts to burn that fire a little bit more.
I mean, you take people from no names to role models.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you want to see, and that's how you grow your sport. How many girls from Iceland said they watched Annie Thorisdottir compete in 2009? Katrin Davidsdottir being one of them, that inspired them to do CrossFit. You're going to see the same thing in Latin America. The Brenda Castros, the Anita Pravatis, And what that's going to do is just raise the level of the sport. The training will get better, the affiliates will grow, the coaching will improve, the education will help drive these athletes to greater heights.
The coaching improving, I think, is the big part there. And that's not to say anything about where you are now, but a lot of these athletes told us, I watched a lot of videos. Right. I started this by watching Rich
And that's
Froning.
old school CrossFit, man. That's what Ben Smith used to do. Ben Smith taught him how to snatch from YouTube.
Yeah.
And
that's where a lot of this
and
was.
they did it in his garage. But that was in 2008, right? And so you have an entire Latin American community almost kind of learning at that level and getting experience through that, because we haven't had a regional here in 3 years. Mm-hmm. And now you have your own regional, your own athletes on screen, inspiring others, driving others to be better and more successful at the games level, right? And that's not even to get down to trickle down as what CrossFit is doing at a community level.
The important part about the regional being in Latin America too, they had access to regionals in previous years. 14 women were in regionals last year that are here this weekend, 14 men as well. But they went to America.
Right.
The fact that fans can come watch it here is another added benefit to that as well. To buy a ticket, to be in this arena, for someone to feel like they can watch Lucas Rosa and aspire to that, not to downplay what we're doing right now.
Oh, for sure.
But watching it on television is one thing. Seeing it in person is different. Running outside here in heat number 2 of event 1. This is 12 rounds, 12 laps of a 400-meter run. It amounts to 3 miles. You like the scenery, by the way? We are in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and this is Arena Carioca 1, 2, and 3. Home of basketball, among some other things, in the 2016 Olympics and the Paralympics that followed. Wheelchair rugby took place in this arena.
Man. Talking about a sport I want no business being a part of. That just sounds like the ultimate violent sport.
Lucas Rosa, the time to beat at 39:01:30. And I don't know it for a fact. I just know it's true. Samuel Ariza is going to blow that out of the water.
I mean, he looks so good. Getting stronger every lap. Even his face looks more relaxed. His stride is opening up. I mean, we haven't even seen anybody else even touch that close or even close the gap on him at the moment.
He's running out, everyone's running in. I mean, it's simple as that.
And what that does for an athlete, too, is that it builds confidence. Right? It doesn't hurt quite as much if I know I'm in the lead. You know, my lungs don't burn quite as bad as if I know I'm pulling away.
Now, that becomes intriguing as we've talked about the whole race aspect of this. Because you're not on the assault runner, you are physically racing other people. You're not racing your own monitor. However, there's good and bad with that. Number one, it's good because it pushes you when you hear footsteps behind you. Number two, though, is he is so far ahead, he doesn't have that immediate push of someone chasing him. So, is he, not that he wouldn't be holding back, but is he pushing as hard as he would be not being immediately chased?
I would say it's easier to chase than it is to run away. And that kind of goes for everything, no matter if it's on a run or on a rower or it's barbell cycling, is that it's easier to chase than it is to run away. Because looking over your shoulder, trying to see where everybody else is almost more distracting than seeing it right in front of your face and you trying to get to that. There could be an element to his game plan, and we'll have to ask him after this, is, did you back off at any point in time? Did you run faster than you wanted to or needed to? Just try to catch people.
Did you notice you were running so fast at the beginning?
Yeah.
When did you realize you had a lap and a half lead?
Right. And, I think part of it, too, is that trying to see, these guys coming in or just passing him it's a little bit confusing. Did that guy that just passed me, was he behind me or was I ahead of him?
I'm sure Ariza knows. It's hard to lose track of the fact that you're in front.
I said, you got so many bodies out there. And I'll tell you what, that guy in front of him went by him so fast, I wouldn't be surprised that maybe he did come up ahead of him or one lap, in which case is that the speed at which he's moving around, we'll see him again in the next 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's the trick out here, being ever aware of your surroundings. And we see the best in the world do that. Always cognizant of the people around him. Froning brought that to the forefront. Fraser has perfected it. And that's part of the plan. It's not just being physically better than everyone if you don't know what's happening around you. Now, they say stay in your lane all the time. Yes, in terms of what you are capable of. But, I think we talked about this yesterday, is like knowing where people are and what they're doing around you is also very important to how you dictate your tempo and your pace in a race.
CrossFit itself as a workout is about being the best you can be. But this is the sport of CrossFit.
Exactly.
And this is the competition. It's a race.
It's almost more beneficial to just rename this and take the CrossFit portion out of it as it relates to a training program and a lifestyle. Is that when we're here, do your thing. Or, when you're an affiliate, walk in, do your thing, do the best you can. Did you give me best effort? Yes. Okay, that's all I care about. Out here, it's beyond your best effort.
This is Samuel Ariza, who has been in front since he got off the rower and has not let up. So physically counting laps here, marking them off on the piece of paper as your designated athlete runs by. Now, how it works is once you get to the final lap, once you get to the 11th lap, they will stand up. That lets you know you're about to go out on your last lap when you see your judge standing. So you don't even have to keep count. You can just run until they stand up. When you come in after that final lap, the judge will move to the side of the rower, which is basically the ceremonial opening of the door to your lane. You go down your lane when you come back in and have to end up at the finish by the clock indoors. So we talked about it in Heat 1, and it wound up being really important because Chalfoun and Rosa were racing neck and neck until we realized Chalfoun had to run 19 lanes longer once they got inside.
Now, once they got inside, but at the same time, Rosa started 19 lanes behind him. So
correct.
If you're just listening now, you're like, well, how is that fair? It's like it all evens out in the end in terms of where they start and where they finish.
But in terms of where you think you are while you're racing.
Yeah, you got to know where you are relative to the people next to you. But, did Chalfoun know where Rosa was in lane 2? Probably not.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too. I don't know if everybody has cataloged which lanes each 19 guys were in to know who they're racing and where they are.
Now, Ariza is in the front part of your screen, but behind him, that is second place, slowly starting to creep up next to him He was one of the first athletes that got off the rower right off the bat in that first 3K and into his double unders. So that lead that we thought that Areza had is slowly getting pulled in.
You can see checking the rearview mirror. Areza in and out of the arena.
Isso aí, a cada volta o André chegando um pouquinho mais próximo aí do Samuel. Mas lembrando que o Samuel saiu aí da primeira raia, então ele deu uma distância na chegada.
You know, we were talking about the row of Emmanuel Maldonado as well. How cool, calm, collected, how easy it seemed for him. I haven't seen him in ages.
Yeah, true.
And part of that's not a knock on him. I mean, we've been following Areza as he's run, but everyone else has just fallen into the blur of the pack at this point. And that is all important, because if Areza wins the event, yeah, that counts.
Yes.
But there are points distributed 2 through 20, and they all matter, and jockeying for position will become critical even after Areza is off the
Yeah,
course.
I mean, the good news is it's not a one-event regional. And this is just one of 6 that's going to dictate who will be standing on top of the podium this weekend.
Should be a cool race to do at night, by the way. This arena lights up red with kind of shooting stars of light that trace it on the outside. The event record is 35-25 set last week. That was on an assault runner, however, as opposed to being run on foot. We'll give you that asterisk for both events today, because event 2, Linda, will be Linda redefined with a push press, not a bench press. We do not have benches here, and floor presses would be cruel.
No, I wouldn't be surprised if we got 1 or 2 more laps to go. And then that time by Lucas Rosa is starting to look a little bit prettier, because most of these guys are getting about 2 to 2:15 per clip.
2 more laps. This
Okay,
is
so it's
lap
going to be
11.
close, because we're clocking these guys out. It's not an exact 400 meters. It's taking around 2 minutes, 2:15. And if that's the case, we're looking at 39 minutes straight off. If you're looking at 35, Lucas Rosa, middle part of your screen, 39:01 unofficially. And so knowing that, hopefully they know that, there is a clock inside the arena here, is that they're keeping their pace as they go through, but Areza is slowly getting caught. So we had a 2-person race in the last one, and we should have another 2-person race in this one as well. Same scenario we had is these 2 guys are on opposite sides of the floor. Areza is in lane 1, so when he comes in the arena, he gets to go right in. Our other athlete is all the way over in like lane 18.
This will be the final lap to start once they come back through the inside of the arena, not the underbelly of it.
And I said in the beginning, it's harder to run away, and it's easier to chase someone down. And it's taken 11 laps to get here, but now we have these top 2 guys sitting into their final lap.
Luis Perez is chasing down and catching the leader, Samuel Areza.
And that was a was a good pass, but I think a little early. Right, you made a strong pass at the very beginning of the final out. Now he's laboring just a little bit more, but that's the kind of pass you want to save more towards the end or maybe in the middle. In fact, you want to save it on a turn. Where you want to really blow by someone is on a turn, because turns are hard to take at a high speed. And what you usually like to see is you want to run up right behind him, hold for a second, and then make the pass. But he's been able to maintain, in fact, extend that lead. But here's the important part, and I hope Ariza knows that, is that he still is across the competition floor. Yeah. So the distance between the two is about the width of the competition floor. So I want to see Ariza not give up. He's not as far ahead of him as he thinks.
Back in the building. It'll be a race down the lane. Oh, but an easy turn and a sprint for it.
All right, so it is kind of what I thought had happened earlier, that the first pass we saw on Ariza was actually the pass to get into first. And it was Perez.
And then Andre
who
Sanchez.
was right next to Samuel Ariza. So, that's kind of comes in with the confusion of the massive bodies we have out there, is that, that pass looked pretty quick. He looked pretty confident. Not entirely sure that was what I thought it was.
And Andre Sanchez catches Ariza as well, coming into the building down the lane sprints.
And he was all the way over in lane 19. So he had enough distance on Ariza to get ahead of him by just 4 seconds, but it was Perez who made the pass well early on in the middle of this event.
So 3 are in. And the Mexican flag has come out for Luis Perez out of Playa del Carmen in Mexico as he trots around the floor. His first regional since 2015 when he was 47th in the South, but he's a veteran, 2012, 2013 as well. And a foot race with a Maldonado who comes in and beats Ivan Gaitan. So Maldonado, Gaitan are both finished. Maximiliano Arrigosi has also finished his run. Here is Luis Oscar Mora, who has previously been to the games as a teenager. He was a 4th place finisher a couple of years ago. And Oscar Mora is gassed.
I wonder why. I don't understand what happened.
This is Thomas Wilson. He is from the British Virgin Islands, if his name sounds a little bit different than most. Thomas Wilson out of his own box, CrossFit Castaway.
Well, that's a pretty good name for a, for a Virgin Island box.
Now you turn into the massive bodies finishing one after the next. Out of CrossFit Domus, Augustin Garavaglia. Juan Manuel Saitun. And outside still working here. And
yeah,
just trying to get through the next 8 minutes.
I mean, I can't comment or speculate of why this is happening, but you saw a few guys cramping out there a little earlier.
Back inside the arena, Pablo Aber has come in and finished. Out of Q21 in Buenos Aires, they must produce a good number of athletes.
Yeah.
They have a team. They have Pablo Aber, Pablo Josil has come in as well, out of Guatemala. Josil will be an interesting one to watch, the former professional baseball player. He's pitched against Garrett Cole in an all-star game back in 2009. I'll be very curious to see how these scores match up with the scores from the other regionals this weekend. Now, you have to take it with a grain of salt because of the assault runner versus foot race aspect of it, but factoring in how much of it is that and how much of it is strategy and game plan from what people learned from week 1.
Yeah, I would be more curious to see how the other athletes fare with the assault runners. Just based off what we've seen here, it's just so different.
But where this time will play versus those, I think, is kind of neat.
Also, it's under the assumption that it is an exact 3 miles.
Correct.
Measured out, but what we've seen is that some of these top times are around what you would probably get in the top 10 in the previous 3 weeks or 3 regionals we've seen go so far. So it holds up nice, but the weird thing about this is that these events are dictated by the people in them, not necessarily their worldwide ranking, right? If I'm in this heat, the only thing I'm trying to do is either win it and do it by going 39.00, since 39.01 was the score to beat.
Guilherme Dominguez is in. 43:51 on the clock. The cap is 59. And while everyone finishes up outside, let's send it down to Teffy, who has Luis Perez.
Luis, what a race. You weren't the first coming out from the rower, you weren't the first on the double unders, but you made it happen. Was that part of your strategy?
Yes, it's part of the strategy. Is I go in one pace in the rowing, slow in the double unders, and finish fast in the run.
You're a veteran here, so how exciting is this arena for you?
Ah, no te escuché, perdón.
¿Qué tan padre está la arena para ti ahora regresando a regionales?
I feel amazing. I have the last year I don't do the regionals, but and I do it again. I feel good now.
Excellent job on this event. Can't wait to see you again. Congrats.
Thank you, Teffy. Luis Perez is one of the interesting cases of personality at this regional as well. We asked all of these athletes a series of questions to get to know them a little bit better. We didn't get all of Luis's answers from Luis because at one point his wife just answered and said, "Hi, this is Leah, Luis's wife. He doesn't like talking about himself. He's very humble. So let me tell you about what he's done. He just wants to go out and act," and that is exactly what he did today.
He has the opposite problem of what I have, is where I can't stop talking about myself and I'm not humble, where my wife has to tell me to shut up and not talk for me. It's good to see that. It's good to see, good guys do well in this particular event. But I like the strategy. It's kind of what I was hoping that somebody would do, is not come out early and blow themselves up, but to pace it out in the beginning. Chill on your double unders. Everyone listening, unless you're trying to set an event record and win your region, it's like just chill out and break them up. Breathe, and then sprint through this as fast as you can towards the end.
And the final athlete will not finish here in the second heat of event 1.
And that's 3 minutes before the time cap, so he kind of just called it. So I don't know if that's due to injury, fatigue, or just not wanting to continue.
So we are done with men's event number 1, and we will do it all over again with the first 20 women here from Rio de Janeiro. It's event number 1 on the women's side. Games.crossfit.com has all your results, leaderboard, and more. Back to Rio next.